Yeah, how's it going, everybody? It's the Masked Man, and I kind of wanted to do a video like this for a little bit discussing Naruto's cast, as I noticed a lot of different opinions, very strong opinions regarding the characters, and so I thought, why don't we go through some of the characters on this, bro, you done f***ing f***ed me up with that, are you good at intros? F*** you, bro. F*** you. From the top. Hey, editor, if you're smiling, I'ma fire your ass, alright? Don't you... Really quick before moving on with the video, today's video is brought to you by Swipe. They're a relatively new and small company that's offering mouse pads of immense quality. They're made with stitch edges, as well as, honestly, the size of it all was just impressive. I wasn't expecting my mouse pad to be this big when it arrived, but it was great. They sent me the Akatsuki one, which perfectly fit my desk layout, but they have other designs on there that are simple and I think will fit any desk out there. But there will also be more designs on the way. I was also really shocked to find out that it was completely water resistant, which I thought was dope. And so with the promo code down in the link in the description below, you could get 15% off on your order. Admittedly, I was a little skeptic at first, but as soon as I got my mouse pad, the first thing I did was recommend it to a friend of mine who was needing a mouse pad as well. So once again, if you're looking for a high quality mouse pad, make sure you use the link down in the description below for 15% off on your order. And thanks again to Swipe for sponsoring today's video. Yeah, how's it going, everybody? It's the Masked Man, and I've been wanting to do this video for a while, talking about some of the more polarizing characters within Naruto, as I think it's a series that gets a lot of flack for its lack of characters, or the ones that are misused, but really when I look at it, I think Naruto also has a lot of great characters that sometimes don't get the attention that they deserve. With me for this video, I brought along Six. So what's up?
Hey.
Is that it?
Yep.
Just all right, bet. So we came up with a list of characters that we thought was worth talking about, and we're going to discuss whether or not we think they're overrated, underrated, or properly rated. I actually kind of got this idea from Barry McCockner. Just ignore that last name, but he does great sort of content on sports and stuff like that. So I feel like this would be fun with this series in particular. So I guess the first character we want to go over is Lee, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, so yeah,
I got Rock Lee. He's like at a weird spot here, right? Because he's overrated in terms of like power, right? And then he's like underrated in terms of his character. So
okay.
The reason I feel like he's underrated in terms of his character is because a lot of people watch the Naruto anime, obviously starting out, and it's been a long time since someone's like rewatched it, right? So people mostly go off of their memory. Like, okay, I saw it 5 years ago. This is what I remember the character like. Lee's really good at hard work. That's like the main focus for his character. Guys like, well, all these other guys are geniuses. You know, Neji's a genius. Sasuke's a genius. Naruto has the Nine Tails, whatever. Lee's a genius in the way that he'll work as hard as he needs to in order to catch up with those people. All right, and that's how he can like somewhat match Gaara, even though in the end he lost. Blah blah blah. And I think it's a really underrated aspect of his character. I mean, he was able to unlock 5 gates just off sheer hard work alone. No talent at all. So, yeah, I mean, I just feel like he's underrated in that aspect.
I feel that. I personally can't speak in terms of power because I actually was like, yo, I'm thinking of doing power scaling, and Swag literally screamed at me. He was like, don't, please don't. But it was one of those things with Lee where I do sort of feel bad for his character in the sense that it's a little weird, because I agree with you in the sense that I think certain aspects of his character get underrated. I think people just expected so much more from him as a side character than his role really was. Does that make sense? Where it's like, I don't know, like say somebody looks at, I don't know, just like as a basketball analogy, like, you know, you get this like bench player, right? Or a role player. That's a role player. They're not meant to go out there and put up 25 points all the time. If they go out there and drop a 25-point game, that's probably not happening again. Maybe not the best analogy, but I feel like Lee did his job for the time within the story. And later on in Shippuden, when the story needed to focus on more important things regarding the narrative, I think people fail to realize that, you know, maybe you could argue Lee should have been giving a more satisfying end to his character. And I think a lot of people might argue Lee is overrated just because of the conversation surrounding his character. Like, oh, like how many times have you heard the take Lee should be the main character or should have been the main character?
That's a terrible take. I hate hearing that.
Right.
I had to have heard it at least 1,000 times. Like, I hate it. It's annoying.
Right. Because people seem to get this idea that Naruto is all about hard work and being the underdog when that's not even the central theme of the story. So I think Lee oftentimes gets put in conversations he shouldn't be, so he could be looked at as overrated, but yet I don't know. Lee is a weird one. Lee is a very weird one, and I think a character later on that we're going to discuss is kind of in a similar position.
Yep. I think I found like a better analogy with this, like too much of a side character thing, right? So say you have like chocolate chip ice cream or chocolate chip cookie, right? You obviously like the chocolate chips in it, but then like if you were to add 10 times the amount of chocolate chips in there, you probably wouldn't want to eat it anymore, right? So it's like too much of a good thing can just be bad. So maybe it's better Lee didn't get as much screen time as everyone wanted him to. We talked about this a little bit before we were recording, but if Lee and everyone was to get all the screen time everyone wanted them to, the manga would be like 1,000 chapters. It would get to like One Piece length. And it really doesn't need to be that long. So
Right, yeah. I definitely think Lee and some other characters at times, and I think this happens with many series where people want side characters to be more than side characters. When it's like, as great as these characters are and the themes that they could add to the story, you can't make the mistake of giving too much stock into them, therefore possibly compromising what the main point of the entire story is really about. So I think that's sort of how it is with Lee. The next character, I think we both agree on him as a character, and that would be Itachi. Now, I'll say this just to get it out of the way. I think Itachi is easily a top 5 character in the series. I don't think anybody is arguing against that. However, I still, and maybe it's just because my friends were the biggest Itachi fanboys, but I think he's one of the best characters in the series, but I feel like he can slightly be overrated at times. I swing between properly rated and overrated, and I think you might give better insight regarding like the power scaling community of it, because I've heard shit like Itachi beats Madara, and I still don't like. Again, power scaling's not my thing, but that does not sit right with me.
It doesn't
I don't
sound
know.
right. Yeah,
so
it's like the first time you hear the take, it's like, oh, maybe, and then you think about it for like, I don't know, 10 seconds, and you're like, no, it's not working out that way. So I mean, yeah, Itachi's definitely overrated in terms of power scaling. I tend to lean more towards he's like fairly rated. Like you said, like I like shift on this character, but in this power scaling, he's just 100% overrated. I mean, I'm even a little bit guilty of it sometimes. Let me just be real, but but yeah, I know when I'm doing it is the thing. A lot of people don't. They just spit it as fact, and it's just not like that.
Right. No. Yeah. And I think it's also just how aggressive a lot of the Itachi fans are. I know there was a story, sadly, of this guy who, I believe he like jumped off a building, didn't he, when he found out Itachi died in the story of Naruto. It's just like some real crazy stuff when you look at like the fan base and how they can really look at a character at times. But I do think Itachi as like an actual character though is great. Like for me, there's no denying that. Just the sheer fact of him being the most important character to the second most important character in the story. And the twist with his character was also really brilliant. I think Itachi deserves all the praise he gets as a character. But for me personally, if someone had him at number 1, I'm not going to be upset, but I'd kind of disagree. You know what I mean? It's like,
he's also like, he's just really impressive. Like the stuff he does is just impressive. Like he stopped Edo Tensei. That's just impressive. Like no matter which way you slice it. So
for sure. No, so Itachi's dope. However, this other character, who's my personal favorite in the series, I would personally put him above Itachi as a character, but me saying it would get me in so much trouble. So I kind of want your take on it, because I feel like I've said a lot regarding Obito and how I legitimately think he's the second best antagonist in the series. Maybe I'm tripping on that one, but I do feel like Obito's entire reputation it was horrible. Like I could not find another. We were talking about it before the recording. Like back when I first started YouTube, I could not find another Obito fan outside of me, maybe Swag. Like that was it. That was it.
As soon as I got done with Naruto in 2019, I loved Obito. No one else liked him. I was on Instagram back then, like, you know, on the Naruto pages. No one liked Obito. So yeah, it's definitely, Obito is underrated. I'm gonna say that, and I'm firm on that. He's just underrated. That's it. He's not overrated in any aspect. He is only underrated. A lot of people like to, you know, say that Obito started a war because of Rin, when that's just blatantly not true.
Nah, I totally agree. I just don't think you can have a character who's that narratively impactful, and not only that, but because you could have a character who's narratively impactful and be written poorly. But when you look at the way he foils Naruto, which in my opinion he's a better foil to Naruto than Gaara and Pain were, even though I think Pain overall as a character, I'd have him above Obito, but that's a whole like different discussion. The way he was able to pull things behind the scenes, it's weird to me when people say, "Oh, I liked pre-Shonen's Ulquiorra," and a lot of people talk about his nihilism and emptiness and all that, and yet I never see that sort of willingness to look at that thematically for Obito, even though it's very clearly there. How he says he's empty inside, how everything's meaningless, it's all hell. It's like all of these philosophical intricacies that people are willing to afford Madara and Pain, people just seem to completely forget about Obito. And I would argue Obito went out, because people point out the scene where Naruto called Obito, "Oh, you're actually a cool guy," and all that, which in my opinion is just bad. You could argue maybe just bad dialogue on Naruto's part. But I think what the scene actually means, and then on top of that, that's not how Obito went out. He went out sacrificing his life for Naruto. I would argue Obito went out a lot better than Madara, and you could argue even better than Pain did. So I don't
know about
see...
better than Madara. I don't know.
You don't think Obito went out better than Madara?
I mean, they're like relative to me, but I don't think one is really better than the other one. Better than Pain, though, for sure. For sure.
Gotcha. Okay. I feel like Obito went out better than Madara just because Madara and the whole Kaguya shenanigans still doesn't sit right with me personally.
Yeah.
Although that's not the end to Madara, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Technically it is, but
that last conversation he has with Hashirama is
that's beautiful.
I like it.
Yeah, that's a great conversation. But I agree. I think we're both set on this. Obito's an incredibly underrated character, and one that I think people like. It's strange because with the backstory, people praise Kakashi so much for it, and Kakashi is all deserving of praise, but yet I think Obito's backstory is probably it's probably my favorite in the entire series, up there with Itachi's for sure.
If you want like a nice recollection of Obito's character, maybe you haven't looked at the series in a while, go to find one of the websites with the manga on it, and after Obito's backstory, I think it's like chapter 608, 607, when it's ending and he talks about how the world doesn't matter to him, and the page where he says doesn't matter to me, it's completely black. Just read that whole chapter and you'll understand Obito a little bit better.
Right. Yeah. So I think again the he started the war over Rin as people simplifying something to a gross degree and just going along with it. Yeah. Just because again, if you look at the context, it's clearly a character who had lost everything. And for him, he was being told the entire time, yeah, this world ain't really shit. And then he found out, hey, no, this world ain't really shit. So there's Obito. So I guess an easy transition from Obito would be the one responsible for Obito, and that would be Madara.
Yep.
I feel like Madara has very extremes. I feel like Madara gets thrown in the mud a little too much regarding the whole Kaguya thing. Some people are willing to use that and completely discard his entire character. And I see others who have Madara a little too high into consideration.
Yeah, people, especially on like the power scaling side, it's kind of just like Itachi. If you really think about it, right? Like there's people who say Madara can beat Kaguya or beat Ishiki or something like that, when that's obviously just not happening, right? Like Kaguya is just Madara plus more, so there's no way Madara is beating her in the end. But like as a character, What do we lean more towards? Do we lean more towards he's underrated because he has those extremes? So does it like balance out, or do you feel like one extreme is shown more than the other one?
Everyone's perspective is going to be different, right? Depending on how much of the community you're into and how much of certain sides of the community you see. Me personally, I think it does sort of balance out, right? Where people understand the build up to his character, everything he did when he was in the fourth Great Ninja War, like it's amazing. The quotables, just everything with Madara, like which again is frustrating because I'd argue Obito has so many of those same qualities that people just completely forget about. But with Madara, from what I've experienced and my own personal take on the character as well, is everything was great. Just the Kaguya situation does kind of stain what could it's sort of like you do a sick trick on a skateboard, but then you roll your ankle on the landing, but you kind of get up and limp it off anyways. That's sort of how I feel about Madara. It's like I think most people, if they were to have him on like a top 10 list, from what I've seen, would have him maybe 6th or 7th, mostly 7th, which I think is fair. I think it's fair for that kind of character.
Yeah, it definitely depends on what part of the community you're in, because there's like a little subsect on Instagram of people who think Madara is just number one. I think they're like maybe 4,000 deep at this point. They just think Madara is number one, like the best character.
Yeah, so, yeah. Listen, anime Instagram I'm on there just for promotional purposes and because some of the homies. But I've seen people on anime Instagram say like Kanye West over Takehiko Inoue, who's the author of Vagabond, and I scratched my head and they're like, well, art is art, and I'm like, that's not how that works. You don't put a choir against a monochromatic drawing in an art tournament, but go crazy. Yeah. So yeah, no, anime Instagram is
it's a wild place.
It's a very interesting place. So now we can move on to what I think would be easily one of the most underrated characters in the series, because Naruto gets a lot of talk about the female characters, and sadly a large majority of that conversation surrounds characters like Sakura and Hinata, which I think most of us can agree that Hinata is definitely necessary, especially in the 4th Great Ninja War when Obito almost broke Naruto, and if it wasn't for Hinata being there, I think Naruto would have gone kind of crazy. Sakura, we'll get to her. But I think when it comes to a really underrated character, one that I think legitimately had a great character arc, Tsunade. I think Tsunade is an extremely underrated character.
Yes, and we agree on this one. This was one of the ones we talked about pretty in depth before we started recording, but
yeah,
Tsunade does not get the praise she deserves whatsoever, and I think it's because of that conversation that Naruto characters or Naruto females are just all poorly written. No one wants to throw in the ring that, oh well, there's one. Here's Tsunade.
There's one. We got one. We got
at least one. Like I don't agree with the whole take in general. Like, oh, Naruto females are just poorly written. I think it's really those two like highlighted examples with Sakura and Hinata, and less so on Hinata, way more so on Sakura. But Tsunade's backstory is great for one. The whole thing about fearing blood, losing both of her brother and her lover, the necklace of death, all of it is tied really well together into the present with Naruto and her like coming back to being herself because of someone like those people she used to love that passed away. So and the beginning of the arc starts with her contemplating a decision on whether or not she wants to help Orochimaru so she can get those people back, but then Naruto just gives it to her, right? Like he's just there. So I mean, it's a really nice arc. She's definitely like the best. She's got one of the best character introductions in the whole Naruto manga. Yeah. So she's definitely the best female character introduction in the whole manga, at least in my opinion.
No, I definitely agree. I think she's one of that whole story with Tsunade and her overcoming her trauma and sort of the character arc from this reckless person who had nothing. She didn't want anything to do with this sort of lifestyle anymore to becoming Hokage. I feel like it was a really strong emotional point for me in part 1, as well as she's also a character that puts in a good amount of work in the 4th Great Ninja War. Like, you know, she did all she could, but, you know, poor Madara, right? Like, what like, I mean, come on now. And I think if you say a character loses a fight, therefore they're a bad character, it's such a horrid take. Like, I see so many people downplay Sasori as a character because he lost to Sakura, when it's like Granny Chio's right there, but, you know, anyways, bad take. But I definitely think Tsunade. I also, and I'm just going to be completely honest, I think also a large majority of the conversation regarding Tsunade and her character kind of gets swept under the rug just because of her two giant personalities. If I'm being honest, because like most of the time when the boys talk about Tsunade, ain't no one talking about her damn character. Let's be honest, ain't no one doing it, which is a shame because, you know, I legitimately think she's a really great character, and low key you could argue better than Jiraiya, but we'll discuss that later on. So I think both of us agree Tsunade is definitely underrated. This next one, I've never liked this character, personally. And that might be a crazy take. I've never been a fan of this character, but... Oh, is it not?
It's not.
Oh, shit, I didn't know. I'm out of touch with the community, crap. But I still am willing to recognize that for that conflict he had with Naruto, I thought, to this day, it's one of the things in part 1 that stuck with me the most. I personally don't look at it and think it's poorly done. I know I've seen a lot of arguments that, well, the character's Neji. Let me say that. The character's Neji. but I have seen a lot of arguments that whole message of, you're kind of screwed, like fate is kind of what determines it, right? And you can't go against what's sort of been predetermined. That ideology was actually proven right by the end of Naruto, and I kind of want your opinion on that, as well as just Neji overall as a character.
Yeah, no, that's stupid. So people who say Neji's right typically just ignore the fact that Naruto like broke the cycle of hatred. They're like,
Right,
oh, he was
exactly.
special at the beginning. Oh, all this was predetermined. And he broke the cycle of hatred. The thing that's been cycling for over 1,000 years, Naruto just like broke it. That just completely dismantles that entire argument. Neji was wrong in the end.
Right.
So I don't like Neji for a few reasons. So I definitely think he's overrated. Let's just go ahead and put him in that category. I don't like how Neji beat on Hinata when he was first introduced. I never liked that. I didn't like it when I first watched this series either. I didn't like how he was picking on Naruto, because I liked Naruto when I was first watching the show. I liked him way more than I ever liked Neji when I first started watching it. So watching him bully Naruto was also annoying. And then he was proven wrong right after that, basically, by Hinata's dad. So it's like, this guy's whole thing, and then after that he doesn't do anything else really. Then he dies.
Right.
To a
Yeah.
So his whole thing is based on a lie, and then he just dies. I don't like Neji. He's overrated.
Right. Okay. I'm willing to agree with that, with the way people talk about his character. I do think it was a good opposing ideology to what Naruto had, and it being proven wrong by Naruto, I think, was a good thing, but I don't personally put too much stock into Neji. I will say that is something that a lot of people do miss when it comes to Naruto's theme, even though in the 4th Great Ninja War, it's literally there in front of you. You have the entire cycle right there. You have Madara and Hashirama, Obito and Kakashi, Naruto and Sasuke. You're literally shown the generational cycle of hatred that is repeated, and yet people, that bit is extremely confusing.
Yeah.
I definitely do think Neji's a character that served his role for, again, that time and conflict, but I think he sort of follows the same vein as Lee, where people wanted more from their characters that I think were necessary. I think we got what we should have gotten from them, and maybe you could argue that Neji could have went out better. But yeah, no, I think that's sort of it with Neji. Okay, this next one. This next one. I have never understood it. I have never gotten it. Naruto fans, y'all frustrate me because y'all rep characters that shouldn't get repped so hard, but yet some of the best characters in the series y'all completely ignore. So I don't blame One Piece fans when they absolutely trash on Naruto, even though I think that's stupid, because I'd argue, we were talking about this before, we were to do a list of the best characters in the big 3. Naruto dominates that list in my opinion, but whatever. Why in God's name? Why? I saw this twice. Why should I ever see Shisui in a top 10 Naruto character list? And why was he in the top 5?
Why is Shisui
for some
top
people?
20?
What? Thank you. He's cool. But he does not have narrative. Like, okay, he has narrative weight because of his relationship to Itachi. But outside of, 2-3 scenes, what is there?
Nobody, bro.
What is there?
We're talking about the guy who got folded by Danzo in 4 different continuities. He got folded 4 different ways by the same guy. And look, this is what I've been told. I've been told that the main reason people like Shisui is because of the Ninja Storm games.
Storm 4 game, yep, with the green Susanoo, where he didn't even have in the anime and manga. So,
because
I've
never played those games. Right? I played a little bit of Storm 4 with Swag on stream one time. So I never really gotten deep into those games. So I heard that's why people like him. Because I genuinely wanted to know why people would care for Shisui so much. There's that,
sure he's
and then
busted
there's
in that
this
game.
anime filler where Shisui's a kid and he fights some Anbu members that I think make people like him. But other than that, nothing.
The way he gets talked about is gross. I should never, ever in my life see Shisui near, like you said, a top 20. Respectfully. And he's not that he's a bad character. There's just nothing there to justify it. There's nothing. There's nothing there. There, no, not at all, not at all. And can I be honest? I think him and Itachi suffer from the same thing, which is people I think really judge the character based off of potential. Like the what if they were allowed to be at their strongest, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like that's neat and all, but we can't use theories and what ifs to add to a character over the actual substance material. Like you can't. Like you can't do that. Like I'm sorry. No.
Yeah, no, it's
you're
not
not
fair.
getting away with it. Like no, we don't do this. I don't see this with any other series. I do not.
It's
I swear I
literally like writing your own side story to the manga in your head and then saying that it's canon, bro. Like literally
Yeah.
canon. So nah.
Yeah, nah, listen. Cool concept. I thought he was raw in Storm 4, but I'm sorry. No. The next one I think is really interesting because there's obviously his connection to Lee, right? His dynamic with Kakashi, which is fun. But Might Guy, considering that really the moment with Guy's character, and I mean he also had the fight with Kisame, don't get me wrong, like that was really dope as well. But really, it's just kind of the Madara moment. And even then, a lot of people don't like the fact that he survived. So I don't really know how to, because I like Guy. Don't get me wrong, like my Guy is super likable, but I wonder if sometimes people take him being likable and then take that to the extreme where they're like, oh yeah, he was a really good character. Where it's like, I don't really know. Maybe I'm out of touch. I don't really know the discussion with Might Guy.
I mean, yeah, most of the time people talk about Might Guy about his power because Might Guy doesn't have a ton of super emotional moments, right? Like he's really like power of youth, hype, kick and punch guys, right? So that's his main thing, and then he does this crazy stuff with Madara, and it's like, oh, okay, well that's like the apex of this character.
Yeah.
So I mean, Guy's cool. Yeah, he's cool. He's just really overrated, especially when it comes to that fight. Like when it comes to Guy versus Madara, yeah, he survived, but like in the end, it didn't really do anything. So it's like, is it really bad he survived? Like if he took out Madara then survived, okay, then we have a bigger discussion here. Maybe that shouldn't have happened, but he didn't take out Madara.
Right.
So I don't know.
Right,
I feel like it's fine that way.
Gotcha. All right, so Guy's a relatively simple one to get out of the way. I know we were also discussing Gaara as a character where, and I forgot to sort of bring this up when we were talking about Neji and Rock Lee, but I think real quick we could agree that Gaara is relatively properly rated. Most of the community sees him as one of the better characters in the series. He's definitely in my top 10, just because I think everything from his backstory to the dynamic he had with Naruto, and the fact that he's one of those side characters that remained prevalent and relevant near the end, is, I think, a really strong suit for his character. I think Gaara's, I think we can agree on that one.
Another good thing about Gaara is that his character development is extremely noticeable.
Right.
Like you see Gaara change as a person, not just from like, oh, mass murderer man to end of part 1 where he's like calm down helping the Leaf Village. You see that change from that mass murderer kid all the way up till he becomes Kazekage, and then at the end of the series as well, and then even on into Boruto. Like you really see Gaara change as a character, and I think that's what really makes people like him. Like you can just physically see the development. So yeah.
Right, yeah. No, I love Gaara. He's great. Okay. So I wanted to do a positive note, so maybe we could ease a little bit because there might be some very strong sentiments with this character, especially given that in a recent, I think, vote thing, her fight against Sasori was voted number 1, which I don't. But listen, not that was a bad fight, just why that one over Kakashi, Obito, both Sasuke versus Naruto's? Anything else? What?
Literally bodied, bro. Bodied votes for this and the Naruto top 99, by the way. Best fights and the popularity poll.
Wait, they were botted?
Votes. Yes. People were using VPNs to double vote on Sakura. They were getting One Piece fans to come in, vote for Sakura, basically just to sabotage the thing.
And yet somehow she's still behind Itachi and Minato, right?
Yeah, well, she was back then. We don't know.
And then that changed. I will say real quick, I know we're supposed to be getting into Sakura. We already have enough Itachi content. I want to see some more for Minato personally. That's my take on it. But okay, so Sakura. Here's the thing. What the fuck? Like, why is I've never seen. Listen, as a Berserk fan, we go hard for like Casca, right? Because if you go around the anime and manga community and talk about good female characters, she and then Farnese is like one that gets brought up often, right? And yet we're not even that ride or die for her, and she's pretty universally considered a really well done female character because she's more than a romantic interest. She's a legitimate character who goes through great character development. Although there's her character's yet to be finished, but that's nor here nor there. Sakura is a character that I think, yes, sometimes people might conflate the fact that they don't like her personality with her character. But it's like, we kind of talked about it with Tsunade. It's sort of like, I would argue Tsunade had a far more compelling character arc than Sakura had throughout the entire series.
Why are you standing Sakura? Tsunade is right there. Sakura plus is right there. Sakura with better character development, more motivation, everything else better is right there. Why Sakura? I did a video about Sakura and why I don't like her. Just fully in depth why I completely genuinely dislike her character. One was that bullshit she pulled with Naruto where she told him
I love you.
That, oh my god, that had to be, that it has to be the worst plan in the whole Shinobi world. Worst plan in the whole Shinobi world. And then Sakura's fights are bad. She's got one. She's got one with Chiyo and Sasori. Oh, I guess two with Shin. But Shin really makes that fight way better.
Yeah.
Like Sakura versus Ino.
I was literally about to say that Ino gets trashed for that. Ino legitimately gets trashed for that. If we're going to hold that against Ino, we need to hold it against Sakura as well, because this is my genuine opinion on Sakura. I think everything regarding her character is how do I want to word this very carefully. She's obviously important in the series. Like, there's no denying that. But everything that I care about her is mostly just because of Sasuke. It's her impact on Sasuke, if anything. But I personally, unless I'm just completely being ignorant to the whole situation, I just feel like as a character, despite being one of the primary ones in the cast, there's so many other characters that have far more, again, compelling character arcs to me than she did throughout the entire series. And again, I personally don't hate her as a character. I just don't care, which I feel like is a shame because I want to. Again, you're the romantic interest to Sasuke, who in my opinion is the best character in the entire series. And yet I just, that's a character where it's like, okay, you had Lee who had this lightning in a bottle moment. You have people who love Neji. You have Gaara who has this progression throughout the entire series, this development throughout the entire series. And it feels like Sakura gets largely forgotten for a large majority of the narrative, which is a shame. And the moments she does have aren't really all that great to justify botting an entire competition so she could win a popularity poll, in my humble opinion. Now, if she ends up winning it, I hope we get some more material that, and I mean, I haven't read Boruto yet, although I'm thinking about catching up because
Boruto's
I've heard a lot of conversation around that.
The manga.
Yeah, I've heard, bro, I don't, because like the anime comes out more frequently than the manga, right?
Well, the anime is done now.
It's done now, but it was coming out like weekly, right?
Yeah,
and the manga was coming out monthly. Yep. When has that ever been the case? Why would they set up a series like that? Why would...
It's really poorly done. Really poorly done. No one can disagree with that.
Okay. That's a shame, because I stopped reading the manga around the Jigen fight. It was years ago, so I definitely have a lot to catch up on, especially some of the things I've been hearing recently. Is there anything in Boruto regarding Sakura that one could really vouch for, or is it just...
There's nothing.
Lovely. That, again, it's a real shame, because I feel like as a character, she came off more as a romantic interest, kind of like how Hinata does with Naruto, instead of there legitimately feeling like there was time to develop a relationship. I feel like there's a huge difference between writing a romantic interest and writing a relationship.
And writing a character. Like Team 7, right? Naruto, Sasuke, Kakashi. Oh,
Yeah.
those are three pretty good goated characters, and then Sakura's over there with
Yeah.
nothing but wanting Sasuke. Naruto, he wants to get Sasuke back 100%. He also wants to be Hokage. Sakura has nothing but wanting Sasuke. We never learn about a single other goal Sakura has other than wanting Sasuke. And it really bogs down her character.
Yeah, it's like a motivation that allows her to pursue something when she's not with those characters. Because Sasuke has this whole thing with Itachi, and then eventually, the more that he learns about the world, the more he realizes, like, it's like his scope of what's wrong with the world becomes wider and wider the more he learns about it, which I thought was a beautiful progression of Sasuke's goal, right? And then, like you said, Naruto as Hokage, that's an extremely long-term goal that is still there regardless of who he's around. And like you said, with Sakura, it's like outside of Sasuke...
And then they get mini goals, right? Like with Naruto and Sasuke, they get mini goals. Naruto's like, oh, I need to learn Sage Mode. I need to make Sage Mode greater. I need to master hatred, conquer the Nine Tails. Sakura is the same thing, whole story, and it never changes. And it's boring. She's just a bad character.
Right, yeah. It's a shame. I think it's a real shame, because I think if Kishimoto would have been able to have given her something like Tsunade, but even greater, I think, then I think Naruto would be looked at pretty differently. So now that we're done talking about what will probably get us in trouble, so be it. We can now turn to another underrated character, one that I felt, at least in the Akatsuki, you could argue. Now, I personally have him behind Sasori, but that's just me. But I still think he doesn't get enough praise, because I hear a lot of praise for like Zabuza and Haku, which I have no issue with. But I feel like Kisame is a really solid character for the time that we get him, and yet I don't hear as much as I'd like to regarding him.
Kisame is fun. Like he's a good character, and he's also fun on panel. Like Kisame is genuinely entertaining. He cracks jokes. His move kit is nice. He's got that big sword that absorbs chakra.
Yeah,
he's genuinely just like a funny guy. And then like his end was great. Like the little flashback with Itachi, and him having to unalive himself to save information, not give up any information. It was great. It was a beautiful ending. So I mean, Kisame is definitely underrated.
I think his interactions with all the characters. Yeah, the interactions with all the characters. I also really did like his backstory as well. I felt like the backstories with the Akatsuki did a really good job of building the world. Yep. In a very effective short amount of time. And I think Kisame is one of those characters that, he doesn't really get as much talk as I feel like he should. And you could argue maybe that's because his final fight is against, Guy, and it's not against, Deidara had to fight against Sasuke, and, Pain had to fight against Naruto. Like, some of the other Akatsuki members had fights against far more, I guess you could argue, primary characters in the series. So maybe that's the reason Kisame doesn't get the talk that he should. But I think also just from like a basic character standpoint, although this is pretty surface level, I do think Kisame is easily one of the better character designs in Naruto as well. Like if you can recognize a character easily through their silhouette, you've done a pretty good job designing the character. So I think Kisame, I don't think anybody's putting him in a top 10 or a top 15. But he's definitely a solid character for what he does. And okay, I didn't talk to you about this before the call because I think I know where you're coming from, but I want you to explain it because I don't know where to go from here. Could you explain to the ladies and gentlemen, the jury, how you feel about Jiraiya?
Okay. So let's say before anything else, I like Jiraiya. Jiraiya.
They all know where this is going.
Jiraiya he's a good character. However, his entire narrative is that he is just a loser. And you can't really disagree with me, because let's think about it. He failed at getting Orochimaru back. He never got Tsunade. He lost to Pain. He never mastered Sage Mode. it's like he never really completed anything, if you get what I mean. So it's like his whole, and he's thinking about this as he's dying. He's like, dang, I never did any of this stuff. I couldn't protect Minato. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't protect Hiruzen. So it's like, you can't really disagree that he's a loser. You can say you like him, but he's still a loser.
Okay.
And I think he's overrated.
Okay. So you think, okay. So I'm not going to disagree with the loser part, but I personally think as a character, he's, unless people just have him in like top 5s and all that, and even when it comes to like the top 10, I have him more so like from 11 to 15 personally.
Right.
Just because, again, yeah, he was a loser, but I'd argue him training what would be the Hokage, not a Hokage, the Hokage who broke the cycle.
He didn't train him well. He didn't train him well. Look, you can't disagree with this, bro. People always complain about how Naruto came back from that time skip with Jiraiya and learned bad genjutsu control and a bigger Rasengan. Am I wrong?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I guess you have a point. I think but I'd argue the way Jiraiya went out is probably the best way any character has gone out.
Oh yeah.
You could argue maybe
Beautiful
just because of the
send-off.
emotional impact. Yeah, that.
Bro,
I think that send-off makes the character.
In the anime, when Jiraiya dies and Naruto's like running through the forest and his hand like touches his back, that was crazy to me. Like that was beautiful. It was a beautiful death. He's still a loser though. Like I'm just being 100% honest.
Right. Yeah, I do like the whole thing with like him writing, his story and all that, and sort of the way that tied in, and just his relationship with Nagato and Naruto, because if it was just Naruto then sure, but I think his relationship with Nagato, like, okay, so I just want to clarify, you think he's a good character, right? He's just a loser.
We have him in the same spot. Like I would have him like 11 to 15, just like you.
Okay.
But I feel like you're more reasonable putting him there. I think I see a lot more people put Jiraiya like top 7 area.
Ooh, yikes. Yeah,
listen, I think
if you
that's
have,
too high.
Yeah, personally, if you have Jiraiya above Tsunade, I'm not going to go crazy. Now, if you have Jiraiya above Obito, reread Naruto. Just reread it. Just reread it. Reread it, and then reread it again. But yeah, okay. So, all right. So we basically agree on that character then.
Yeah.
So we don't really have anybody else we kind of want to talk about. I think we've done enough controversy, maybe. I don't know how the Naruto community is in 2023. It can't be as bad as it used to be. Please, God.
No.
I don't know. Is it not? Or is it just
it's
the power
it's
scale?
better. It's better.
Is it? Okay. All right, this should be interesting then. But all right, man, I appreciate you coming on this video.
Yeah, no problem.
Make sure that if you haven't checked out Six, he does amazing Naruto content. So make sure you go check him out, watch his videos, subscribe to him. And as always, this has been The Masked Man. Hope everyone has a blessed rest of the day, and peace.